Alright guys, so as previously stated in the previous video, we got approval to go ahead and remove the passenger side valve cover. And what we're going to go and do is we're going to inspect the oil manifold. Main thing we want to see is, are the bolts tight and are any of them broken, so I know if I have to extract anything. That way, if we do have any bolts missing or broken, I can get a parts list to see how many bolts I need. I am also going to need the oil standpipes. Like I said, there is a updated design on those where there's a white Teflon washer behind the actual O-ring. That just keeps it a little bit stronger so they don't fail, because when those standpipes fail, what ends up happening is you lose oil pressure. So that's the last thing we want, is to go ahead and do all this work on this truck and to have one of those fail and then the truck comes back as a no start. So I'm going to go ahead and go over how you remove the passenger side valve cover. Now the HVAC box is kind of in the way, but it is doable without having to remove it. You just kind of have to angle the valve cover out away from it. So you're gonna have to actually flip it up towards the inside of the engine, meaning if it's coming up this way, you're gonna do it towards the driver's side and it comes right off. So let me go ahead and move the camera and I'll show you how to remove the valve cover. All right guys, we come over here to the passenger side. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna go ahead and remove this intercooler pipe just to kind of get it out of the way. We're going to remove the glow plug module right here, which we're going to replace anyways. We're going to take the oil pressure switch off. We're going to get the oil filler neck off. We're going to remove this heater pipe, but we're going to end up replacing that heater control valve anyway, so we're going to remove that and get it out of my way. And then we're going to go ahead and take off the same thing, take off all the bolts hanging around it, and then we're going to get it out of this truck. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Alright guys, so we got the valve cover off. So I'm going to go ahead and inspect these screws. Make sure they're tight, or bolts. That's fine. So let's go ahead and start over here on the side. Just inspect them. Make sure they're tight. Make sure they're not broken. Make sure they're not cracked. So I'm going to give them a little bit of a tug. That's fine. Because if they cracked them on the way in, somehow, they would have been broken by now. That's fine. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to take these off anyways because I'm going to replace the oil standpipes, but I just want to make sure none of these are broken. That's fine. That's fine. These ones are a pain in the ass to get to. I'll get those last. That's fine. Where's the other one at? Where are you at? Where are you at? Right there. Okay. Sounds fine. And I just gotta get to these last two, which I'm gonna go ahead and get a quarter drive, and then get those with the 1/4" drive, and then just make sure they're tight. Alright guys, so what I'm gonna be using for those two remaining bolts is this low pro kit right here. So we're gonna go ahead and get a T30. Get my little adapter for it. These are small. And then we get that in there. As opposed to using something like this. Look at the freaking difference. Get a kit to get if you really need to get in tight spots. So what I can go ahead and do now, just make sure it's tight. Sounds good. I know you can't get a whole bunch of torque on this thing, but it does get into spots where you normally can't. So only thing I don't like about this kit is you can't change the angle by flipping these around. So say I want an angle like this and have the head come out here. That's the only bad thing, is it doesn't do that. That would have been nice to have if you can adjust the angle of it just by being able to put the bit in either way. But that one is tight as well. And then the very, very last one, we checked already with the other one. So this one is tight. No problems here. It was just that one side. But again, having these oil standpipes that are not the updated design, I'm going to go and recommend both sides, just so it doesn't come back failed. It does look okay, but it does look like it's starting to kind of flatten out a little bit. So definitely going to want to go and take care of that while we're in there. Like I said, last thing I need is for this truck to come back for a no start, and we're the last ones to touch it. So it's like, you know, what'd you guys do to my truck? So you just kind of avoid that at all costs. And then also the only other part that can fail as far as the O-ring goes is going to be right on the high pressure oil pump, which is underneath the turbo. There is one O-ring on the oil manifold rail. That's the only O-ring that can fail in the system. That will cause a no start. Aside from that, the oil pressure regulator is pretty easy to change. It's right here on the side. That's a separate issue there. But as far as the O-rings go, when we have this thing torn apart, that's the only other one that can fail. But since we're not in that area, we're going to go ahead and ignore it for now. Alright guys, so in this video and in the last one, I kind of misspoke a little bit. So we don't have to pull the oil manifold off just to get the standpipes out. There's these plugs right here that we pull off. It's just like I said, it's been a while since I've actually worked on these. So I'm trying to get everything back as far as I remember how everything goes. So the manifold doesn't need to come off, obviously. Just pull these plugs off, take that one off. Break this one loose. If I can get it. Come on. This is the angle on this one, sucks. Oh, there we go. Let's take off the extension. Just go straight up on it. And as stated, you have a long one and you got a short one. Here's a long one, here's a short one. Okay. And the long one should come out. Yeah, they look like they're getting a little flat. Okay. So these are the standpipes right here. Alright, so now let's just go ahead and switch over to the other side. We'll get the injectors out, and then we'll wait for the standpipes to come, and then the oil manifold bolts for the driver's side are going to come till tomorrow, so not going to get that side done. So we can get at least the standpipes down on this side, get the valve cover back on, and then get the glow plug control module, put the new one put on, and then we can at least have this side done. Let's switch over to the other side and start taking out that injector. Alright guys, so everything is put back together. I bled the cooling system, I got everything plugged back in. Truck is running, truck actually runs really good. Honestly, on these trucks, when you take off the oil manifolds, it's going to take a while for all that to fill up with oil. So it's going to have a really hard start when you first fire these trucks up. You have dry injectors on one side of the car. You have two oil manifolds. Well, I took the standpipes off the other one. I didn't really take the manifold off, but obviously the oil manifold is going to bleed down a little bit. Driver's side is going to be completely empty, so it's going to have a hard start. Do not use starting fluid on these older trucks. Just basically crank it in short bursts, give it a couple seconds of a crank time, hook up your scan tool, monitor the injection control pressure, and obviously once you get up to 500 psi, it should start up no problem. So I watched mine, went to 100, went to 200, and from 200 to right up to 500, and then fired right up. So truck is running good. I don't hear no misfire. I'm gonna go and look at the live data. I don't think it doesn't feel like it's like it was when it came in. And the only thing we can actually check, what you want to do is just look over the injection control pressure. As I was telling my service advisor, he asked me why is it starting so hard. I'm like, it has to build up oil pressure. You have to fill up that oil manifold. Now, I watched the injection control pressure because that will let me know if I have an internal leak. If you're calling for 1,000 psi and you're not able to get past 200, 300, 400 psi, obviously there's an internal leak somewhere under the valve cover in the high pressure system. And believe it or not, that will cause these cars not to start. It's a misconception that, you know, it's high pressure oil. No, it's high pressure fuel. It's high pressure oil that will cause these not to start. So with that being said, I believe, let me go back and let me look at this real quick before I throw the camera over there. I believe I have a cylinder power balance test, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see if I do or not. We can actually look at the, let's see, hot functions maybe? Cylinder power balance. We can see how they're running as far as how they're running evenly. And we can verify that we went ahead and fixed the misfire. I can already feel it. It feels a lot better. We can run the injection control test or the injection electrical test when you're reading the codes. But what we can go ahead and do is, give me 1 second, let me flip the camera around, is we can actually look at the power balance, and it's, for the most part, pretty even. Yeah, so replacing these injectors is not a hard job to do, especially at home. You don't have to lift the truck. Just get a bucket to catch all the coolant. And valve covers come off pretty easy, even with the HVAC box still in place. It's a little bit of a tight fit, but it is doable at home. You don't need any special tools. You're gonna need a couple Torx. I believe it's a T30 and a T45, I want to say, to get the standpipes off. It's a hex. I don't remember where the size hex. I already put everything away, so I don't remember on that one. But what I'm going to go ahead and do right now is I'm going to look and run the injector test, the key on, engine off, self-test, just to check the integrity of that circuit, make sure everything is fine. Remember, there were zip ties on that fuel injection control module to hold the injector, or to hold the connectors in place, as the little clips that lock them in do break off over time. I don't use zip ties. What I can end up doing is I can end up grabbing one of the wires and making it put too much pressure on one of the wires and damage it. What I use is I use the yellow glue that you would use for the molding. I put a little bit on the outside of the connector, make sure I put it up, and I make sure I hold it there for a few minutes before I tighten everything up. And I've never had a problem with them coming down. It doesn't get stuck to the point where you can't get them back out. It just kind of holds them in place a little bit tighter. Again, never had a problem with the stuff getting in the pins causing a failure to start. Just a little bit around each corner of it. On all three of the connectors, you would put them in place, let that stuff solidify a little bit. It just gets to be like a harder rubber, and just kind of locks that in place. Never had one bounce out before. So I don't know whose idea was it to use a zip tie, because the connectors have the wires coming out, and for you to grab them, you have to grab them in the middle, so you're putting excessive strain on the wires, and that's something you don't want to do on these cars. They already have problems with connectors and wires as it is, and that's just another thing that you can do to cause it to fail prematurely. So let's go back into the powertrain control module. Back to doing the part, taking them out. As far as that, yeah, T30, T45, 12 millimeter, 10 millimeter socket, flat blade screwdriver, ratchet, if you're going to use a ratchet or an air ratchet, whatever you want to use, electrical ratchet. I believe that's it. There wasn't that many. I believe there's maybe an 8 millimeter somewhere, 10 millimeter, 12 millimeter. You're going to want to use a 12 millimeter thin wrench to, when you're taking out those brackets to the fuel injection control module. If you don't want the ones that hold the valve cover to come off with it, you put a 12 millimeter thin wrench on it while you take off the 10 millimeter nut. That way you can pull the bracket off and take those bolts off separately. And I believe I'm going to have to shut it off. Let's go ahead and shut it off. And then we're going to go ahead and run this injector electrical read codes. And if you see me looking, it's because the camera's off to the side right here and the monitor is right there, so I have to get used to the way this camera is set up. So let it just run. It's going to check the integrity of the circuit, make sure there's no faults in the fuel injection control module and in the injectors themselves. Main thing is the harness. You want to make sure there's no fault in the harness. After this, we're going to run a glow plug test as well, because I did replace the glow plug off camera, just because those are a pain in the ass to get on camera where they're located. And I also replaced the glow plug control module, which you guys obviously seen. Now with these glow plug harnesses, it is, okay, so we got no faults detected on that. And then we're also going to run glow plug monitoring tests. And that's a key on engine running. So let's fire it back up. It's going to have a hard start. There we go. That hard start is just because we haven't driven the car yet, so it still really hasn't filled up the oil 100%. Obviously, once you drive it, once the oil pressure gets up, you know, over 2, 3, 4,000 psi or higher, it's going to fill up every nook and cranny, and it's going to make it to where it starts easier next time. But again, it's just been running here stationary, not really giving it a high idle or anything like that, so it's not 100% full yet. So let's ensure the parking brake is on. Put the parking brake on. So it's going to run each glow plug, and it's going to make sure they are all working. It's going to make sure the glow plug control module itself is working before we had a failure to communicate, so we should be good now. So let this thing go ahead and go and run. So yeah, doing the R&R, you don't need a whole lot of tools. That was weird. No fault codes detected. Okay, so we're good there. And we can run an injector kill test, but I'm not going to bother. I need to go drive this car because the customer wants the car back today. R&R at your house, don't need much. Those tools that I'm going to go ahead and link the tools that you need in the description as far as the sockets, screwdriver, and what kind of Torx you need. The T45 to the injectors, you're going to need a long one. I'll link that one in the description too, because the regular size ones will not get past the injector head. So you're going to have to use a long reach one. I'm trying to think if there's anything else you need. And I believe that's maybe some hose clamp pliers if you're running the original clamps. Yeah, you're going to need hose clamp pliers to take off the degas tank, to get that bottom hose off, and the smaller hoses that are attached to it. And if you're doing the passenger side, you're going to want to remove the heater control valve, so you're going to want to get those hoses off as well. Yeah, there is no test I'm going to run. I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to clean everything up. I'm going to go road test it. I'm going to see how it feels, and then I'm going to report back to you guys. Alright guys, so that's going to about do it. I road tested the car. Aside from a turbo leak, Probably on one of those intercooler tubes, the one that I pulled off on the passenger side. It could be, there's probably a small pinhole in it. I didn't drive the car when it came in because it was misfiring so bad. I don't know if it was there to begin with, but I'm gonna go take it back to the shop. I'm gonna check and see where it's leaking, and if it is bad, then we're gonna go and recommend that intercooler pipe, the rubber boot. Usually it's the one on the turbo itself. So I'll go and take a peek, see what's wrong with that. None of them popped off, so it's not like a clamp that I put on that was wrong. It's an actual leak in one of the hoses. I can hear it, clear as day. Or maybe it's the lower one, I don't know. Like I said, didn't drive it when it came in. I originally wasn't the one that took a look at it. I got it after the fact. So I'm going to take it back to the shop. I'm going to take a look at it. But yeah, if you're doing this at home, it's not that hard. Just take your time. Make sure you torque everything as far as the oil manifolds and the injectors go, which you see me torque down the injectors. You see me torque down the oil manifold. Specs should be online. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know both of these videos, they're probably going to be kind of long. Hope you guys enjoyed the videos. Until next time, I'll see you guys. Have a good one.